Graph the tangent equation y equals 2 tan parenthesis 3x minus pi. Our first step will be to factor a 3 out of the parenthesis so that we have it in translated form. After factoring out a 3, we are left with x minus pi over 3. I have placed a graph of a tangent curve underneath the axes. We do not know whether or not the axes are the x and y axes yet. We can now label the parts based upon the equation. The 2 is not the amplitude. The 2 determines how steep the curve of the tangent curve is. The higher the number, the closer the tangent curve would be to a line. The 3 helps us determine the period. When we put pi over 3, which is the way we find period, pi over a, that tells us that we are pi over 3 for one curve of the tangent curve. The pi over 3 after the x minus determines the phase shift. So instead of the axes there being the y-axis, it is now the line y equals pi over 3. Since there is no number at the end of the equation, which would stand for k, it would be 0, which means there is no vertical shift, and the axis is the x-axis. To determine the asymptotes, we simply take half of the period. And that distance, in this case, is pi over 6. So if we add pi over 6 to pi over 3, we will get the line of the first asymptote to the right of the vertical axis. So pi over 3 plus pi over 6 becomes pi over 2, and that becomes the first right asymptote in this graph. We would then add pi over 3 again and again, or subtract pi over 3 again and again, because it is the period, and we will get all the other asymptote lines.